Imagine this, a 75-year-old man with just 318 household servants defeats a coalition of 4 mighty kings who had just crushed 5 kingdoms in a single campaign. Impossible? That's exactly what Abraham did in one of the most audacious military rescues in ancient history. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was a calculated night raid that would make modern special forces tactics look tame. Stick around, because what you're about to discover will shatter everything you thought you knew about ancient warfare. Welcome to Testament Holograms, peeking into forgotten lives of the ancient biblical stories. Let's set the stage. We're talking about approximately 2000 BCE, nearly 4,000 years ago. In the ancient Near East, a region we now call the Middle East, picture a world where massive empires are rising. Trade routes are the lifeblood of civilization, and small city-states cluster around the Dead Sea Valley, like pearls on a string. The Dead Sea region, then called the Valley of Siddim, was prime real estate. Lush, fertile, strategically positioned along critical trade routes connecting Mesopotamia to Egypt. 5 city-states thrived here: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela. For 12 years, these cities paid tribute to a powerful eastern coalition led by King Chedorlaomer of Elam, a kingdom located in what is now southwestern Iran. But in the 13th year, they rebelled. Big mistake. Why does this matter? Because what follows is one of the earliest recorded military campaigns in human history, a Besadi clash that would drag an unlikely hero named Abraham into a geopolitical seer, firestorm, and reveal the brutal reality of ancient power politics. Let's meet the antagonists. This wasn't just one angry king. This was a superpower alliance that would make any ancient ruler tremble. King Chedorlaomer of Elam was the ringleader. Elam was one of the oldest civilizations in the world, a powerhouse that rivaled Babylon and would later clash with empires like Assyria and Persia. Think of Chedorlaomer as the CEO of a military conglomerate with 3 partner kings backing his play. King Amraphel ruled Shinar, possibly Babylon itself, the cradle of civilization. King Arioch commanded Elasar, another Mesopotamian city-state, and King Tidal led a nation of various peoples, possibly the Hittites. Together, these 4 kings commanded thousands of battle-hardened soldiers, archers, spearmen, chariots, the works. To put this in perspective, imagine a coalition of 4 modern nations, each with advanced militaries, deciding to crush a rebellion of 5 small countries. The rebels wouldn't stand a chance, and they didn't. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and his allies mobilized, but they didn't march straight to the Dead Sea Valley. Oh no. First, they went on a rampage through the surrounding regions like a medieval shock and awe campaign, crushing every tribe and settlement that might pose a threat. The Rephaim, the Zuzim, the Emim, the Horites, all legendary warrior tribes, were decimated like dominoes falling. This wasn't conquest for resources alone. This was a message: resist us and we'll erase you from existence. Now, with their flanks secured and their reputation cemented in blood, the 4 kings descended upon the Valley of Siddim like a hammer upon glass.
Look at all this loot!
The 5 kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela marched out to meet. Imagine the tension. Farmers and merchants forced into armor, clutching bronze weapons, staring across a dusty plain at a professional war machine that had just demolished everyone in its path. The battle was catastrophic. The valley was riddled with tar pits, naturally occurring bitumen deposits, sticky and treacherous. As the fighting intensified, soldiers from Sodom and Gomorrah stumbled into these tar pits, sinking into the thick black muck, trapped and helpless as enemy spears found their marks. Others fled into the surrounding mountains, but it was too late. The Eastern Coalition crushed the rebellion utterly. They plundered the cities, seized all the food and supplies, and here's where Abraham enters the story: they took captives. Hundreds of people were rounded up to be sold as slaves or held for ransom. Among those captives was Lot, Abraham's nephew, along with his entire household and possessions. Lot had been living in Sodom, a city now reduced to smoldering ruins and empty streets. Now, Abraham wasn't a king. He wasn't a general. He was a nomadic herder, a wanderer who had left his homeland of Ur years earlier, following what he believed was a divine calling. He lived in tents, moved with his flocks, and kept a low profile. By all accounts, he should have stayed out of this. But when a survivor fled to Abraham's camp and reported that Lot had been taken captive, everything changed. Picture this: Abraham is around 75 to 80 years old at this point. Not exactly prime warrior age, But he doesn't hesitate. He immediately rallies his trained men, 318 of them. These weren't professional soldiers. They were born and raised in his household. Shepherds, servants, administrators, men loyal to Abraham but not battle-hardened veterans. 318 men against a coalition that had just obliterated 5 kingdoms and conquered entire regions. The odds were laughable, suicidal even. But Abraham had 3 things in his favor: intelligence, speed, and the element of surprise. Abraham didn't charge headlong into a daytime battle.
Maker of heaven and earth,
that would be idiotic.
that my descendants
Instead,
will be as
he
numerous
employed
as
what
the
modern
stars.
military strategists would call special operations tactics. First, he gathered intelligence. He tracked the enemy's movements. The 4 kings, flush with victory and laden with plunder, were marching north toward Damascus. They'd stopped near a place called Dan, roughly 120 miles north of the Dead Sea Valley. They were confident, perhaps complacent. After all, who would dare attack them now? Abraham divided his forces, a classic maneuver. He split his 318 men into multiple strike teams and waited for nightfall. Under the cover of darkness, they launched a coordinated surprise attack. Imagine the chaos. The enemy camp, filled with soldiers celebrating their victory, suddenly erupts into confusion. Fires ignite, shouts echo. Arrows fly from unseen positions. The 4 kings' forces, caught completely off guard, couldn't organize a coherent defense. Panic spread like wildfire. Abraham's men struck hard and fast, creating the illusion of a much larger force. In the darkness, with attacks coming from multiple directions, the enemy had no idea how many warriors they faced.
Your promise is vast.
It felt like an army.
Like the
Eastern
stars
coalition
above.
broke and fled.
Do not be
Abraham
afraid.
pursued them all the way to
The
Hoba,
Lord is with
north
us.
of Damascus.
He
A
will
chase
guide us
covering
to
over
the promised
100
land.
miles. Along the way, he recovered Lot, all the captives and all the plundered goods. Think about that. A 75-year-old nomad with 318 men defeated a
Your
coalition of
promise
4 kings
endures, my
who had just
God.
conquered an entire region. It's one of the most stunning underdog victories in recorded history. After the battle, something extraordinary happened. As Abraham returned victorious, he was met by 2 very different kings. First, the king of Sodom came out to thank him. He offered Abraham a deal. Give me the people, but keep the goods for yourself. Essentially, take all the treasure as your reward. Abraham refused. He said he wouldn't take even a thread or a sandal strap, lest anyone say the king of Sodom had made him rich. Abraham wanted nothing from these morally corrupt cities. He took only what his men had consumed and a share for his allies. But then came a more mysterious figure, Melchizedek, king of Salem, later known as Jerusalem, who was also a priest. Melchizedek brought out bread and wine and blessed Abraham, saying, "Blessed be Abraham by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Abraham gave Melchizedek a tenth of everything, a tithe. This brief encounter is loaded with significance, hinting at spiritual themes of priesthood, kingship, and divine favor that would echo through centuries. Let's pause for a fascinating side note. What kind of weapons did Abraham's men use? We're talking about the Bronze Age. No steel swords, no gunpowder. Warriors fought with bronze-tipped spears, daggers, bows and arrows, and slings. Armor was leather or bronze scales. Shields were wood covered in animal hide. But the real weapon Abraham wielded was tactical intelligence. Ancient battles often came down to morale and surprise. If you could break the enemy's cohesion, create panic and confusion, you could rout forces far larger than your own. That's exactly what Abraham did. His night raid was psychological warfare before the term existed. Modern special forces use night vision goggles, suppressed weapons, and satellite intelligence. Abraham used darkness, speed, and sheer audacity. And it worked. So what can we take away from this ancient showdown? The Battle of the Kings isn't just a dusty old story. It's a masterclass in courage, strategy, and loyalty. Abraham could have played it safe. He could have reasoned that Lot made his own choices by living in Sodom, but instead, he risked everything to rescue his nephew. He refused to be paralyzed by fear or impossible odds. In our modern world, we face our own battles, maybe not with swords and spears, but with challenges that feel just as overwhelming. Economic crises, personal setbacks, injustices that seem too big to fight. Abraham's story reminds us that courage isn't about having the biggest army or the best resources. It's about taking action when it matters, even when the odds are stacked against you. And here's the kicker. Abraham didn't seek glory or wealth from his victory. He turned down treasure, gave honor to a mysterious priest king, and simply returned home. His reward wasn't material, it was knowing he'd done the right thing. That's a battle philosophy worth remembering. Sometimes the greatest victories aren't measured in gold or acclaim, but in the lives we touch and the integrity we maintain. The ancient world was brutal, unforgiving, and filled with tyrants who believed might made right. But on one starry night near Dan, a 75-year-old nomad proved that courage, loyalty, and smart tactics could topple empires. Thanks for stepping back in time with us. If you enjoyed this journey, like, subscribe, and tell us whose medieval life you'd like to see next.